Hours of silence at Europe's busiest Nordic hub. No takeoffs, no landings, just passengers stranded, staring at screens that offered no answers. The culprit? Drones. Unidentified, maneuverable, and deliberate. Police called the operator capable, which means this wasn't a mistake, it was intentional. At the same time, Oslo Airport went into lockdown. Two capitals, one night, the same threat. Suddenly, stability itself looked fragile. In today's video, we're diving into why drones over Denmark and Norway. And the big question is, who benefits from this? This isn't about drones as gadgets, it's about drones as signals. Signals that trigger billions in defense spending, reshape who Europe depends on for security, and quietly elevate leaders who know how to seize the moment. Welcome to Geo Capitalist, where numbers reveal strategy. If you're new here, subscribe right now. Each week, we uncover the economic engines behind global events. Because while passengers slept on cold airport floors, markets were already moving. Defense contractors smelled opportunity. Politicians saw leverage. Insurance firms recalculated risk. And governments started writing checks. The real story isn't in the skies above Copenhagen and Oslo. It's in the boardrooms, ministries, and budget committees where every disruption becomes justification for billions in new spending. So the question today isn't just who flew the drones, it's who profits because they did. Picture this: Scandinavia's largest airport stop operation. For nearly 4 hours, Copenhagen Airport was paralyzed. More than 20,000 passengers were disrupted. Airlines scrambled, flights diverted to Amsterdam, Berlin, even Stockholm. Costs ran into the millions. Authorities reported sightings of 2 to 3 large drones. These weren't toys. They hovered, switched lights on and off, then vanished. Meanwhile, in Oslo, flights were suspended as security scrambled. Travelers stranded, confusion spreading, officials on edge. The phrase from investigators was telling, capable operator. Someone with skill, knowledge, and intent. Not random, not accidental. And the consequences were immediate. Cargo shipments delayed. Business trips canceled, tourism disrupted, even global supply chains felt the shock as freight rerouted. But here's the key. Disruptions like this don't end when flights resume. They leave a lasting mark on how governments and industries think. Security officials now had fresh evidence to demand resources. Defense firms had perfect case studies to pitch new systems. And passengers, left powerless, reinforced the climate of fear that makes those pitches irresistible. In one night, 2 Nordic capitals became living examples of modern vulnerability. And in geopolitics, vulnerability always comes with a price tag. Copenhagen and Oslo weren't isolated cases. Across Europe, drone intrusions are becoming routine. In Germany, energy sites reported aerial sightings. In Estonia, drones buzzed border regions. In Poland, unexplained airspace violations coincided with heated NATO debates. Individually, each case seemed minor. Collectively, they form a pattern. Critical infrastructure under silent pressure. Airports, pipelines, power stations, none designed for drone defense, all essential to economic stability. And that's the genius of hybrid disruption. It doesn't require a fleet of jets or traditional force. A handful of drones can achieve the same result: uncertainty, media attention, and public fear. For Europe's leaders, the message is uncomfortable. If even advanced states like Denmark and Norway can be rattled, no one is immune. The cost of ignoring the threat is rising, and industries that promise solutions are booming. From Berlin to Brussels, the calculus is shifting. It's no longer if to spend, but how much. And each new incident pushes the ceiling higher. Hybrid disruption is cheap to stage but expensive to counter, and in this imbalance lies the real power of the drone economy. Whenever drones disrupt airports, the media asks, who flew them? But the deeper story is, who profits after? The answer is clear. Defense contractors. Counter-drone systems are no longer futuristic add-ons. They're urgent necessities. Radar arrays that detect low-flying targets, jammers that cut communication links, interceptor drones that hunt intruders mid-air. Each incident multiplies demand. Europe's defense budgets already exceed $1.5 trillion annually across NATO. But after Copenhagen and Oslo, ministers double down. We will secure our airspace. Behind that promise sit contracts worth billions. Airports pay for audits, airlines push for subsidies, insurance firms demand upgrades, and contractors, from aerospace giants to niche startups, compete to fill the orders. Brussels is preparing shared EU funding mechanisms for aerial security. That means multi-year programs, cross-border tenders, and continent-wide deals. For industry, it's a once-in-a-generation boom. Passengers may remember the frustration. Airlines may calculate the losses, but defense firms will bank the profits. This is the economics of fear. When airports fall silent, corporate revenues grow loud. Whenever Europe faces a security scare, Poland is never far from the conversation. As NATO's frontline state, Poland has positioned itself as both a shield and a showcase. And when drones disrupt airports in Denmark and Norway, Warsaw quietly sees opportunity. Poland already spends more than 4% of its GDP on defense, one of the highest shares in the alliance. Each new incident on European soil strengthens its case for even more funding, more troops, and more contracts. The message is simple. If the skies above Copenhagen and Oslo can be breached, then the skies above Warsaw need maximum protection. That logic translates into money. Billions in US and European contracts for missile defense systems, radar networks, and joint exercises. Local industries also benefit. Polish shipyards, transport hubs, and cybersecurity firms see a steady stream of NATO-backed investment. For Denmark and Norway, drone disruptions are alarming. For Poland, they are evidence. Evidence that Europe must treat security spending not as an option, but as a necessity. And every new disruption moves more contracts eastward, which means that while Copenhagen and Oslo suffer the headlines, Warsaw quietly collects the dividends. To be clear, Warsaw isn't cashing checks every time drones appear over Copenhagen or Oslo. What's really happening is a shift in resources and attention toward the east, and Poland is quietly reaping the rewards in defense spending, contracts, and political influence. Whenever Europe faces a security scare, Poland quickly enters the conversation. As NATO's frontline state, Poland presents itself as both a shield and a showcase. And when drones force airports in Denmark and Norway to shut down, Warsaw quietly sees an opening. Poland already spends over 4% of its GDP on defense, nearly double the NATO benchmark. Each disruption in Northern Europe strengthens its argument for even greater investment. The reasoning is straightforward. If drones can shut down Copenhagen and Oslo, then Poland, sitting closer to Europe's tense eastern frontier, needs nothing less than maximum protection. That message resonates. Billions of dollars in contracts for air defense systems, radar networks, and cybersecurity upgrades flow east. American and European contractors see Poland as a guaranteed buyer, and Polish industries, from shipyards in Gdańsk to logistics hubs in Rzeszów, profit from new NATO-backed projects. Meanwhile, Warsaw uses these incidents to elevate its political role. Each scare abroad validates Poland's warnings about hybrid threats and justifies its calls for stronger NATO deployments on its territory. For Denmark and Norway, the drones are a crisis. For Poland, they are leverage. Leverage that turns fear into funding and positions Warsaw as the eastern anchor of Europe's defense economy. In Brussels, EU officials speak of shared European vulnerabilities. In Washington, U.S. diplomats issue careful statements of solidarity but avoid promising direct action. And in Moscow, the silence is telling. No denial, no comment, only ambiguity. Germany has accelerated talks on joint air defense initiatives. France is pushing for greater EU autonomy in securing its skies, and NATO is quietly testing rapid response drills designed specifically for drone incursions. Each move reflects a single realization: the air above Europe is no longer safe by default. Inside Denmark, the reaction takes a different shape. Moments of crisis often strengthen Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen's position. When incidents unfold, she takes visible control, projects calm, and reassures the public. Each disruption becomes a test of leadership, and so far it has reinforced her image as the figure who can keep the country safe. For Norway, the calculus is strategic. As Europe's largest energy supplier, Oslo interprets these incidents as reminders of its critical role and its exposure. Expect heightened security around pipelines, LNG terminals, and airports. Globally, the lesson is clear. Drones may be small, but the reactions they trigger are enormous, reshaping budgets, boosting leaders, and tightening alliances. Back to normal. By the morning after, flights resumed, passengers moved on, and the headlines faded. But beneath the surface, the impact of these drone incidents is far from temporary. They've triggered contracts, reshaped budgets, and strengthened political narratives. The big picture is this: drones are no longer just tools or toys. They are signals. Signals that ripple through economies, shifting where money flows and who holds influence. A few hours of disruption in Denmark and Norway set off billion-dollar conversations in Brussels, Berlin, and Washington. Defense contractors see new markets. Governments see justification for higher spending. Political leaders see opportunities to demonstrate strength. And airports across the continent quietly prepare for the next disruption. But there are also long-term implications. If incidents like this continue, Europe risks normalizing a cycle where every disruption means more money for defense, more dependence on outside contractors, and less faith in public safety. That cycle shapes not only markets, but the identity of nations themselves. So the next time drones appear over Europe, the question isn't just who sent them. It's who benefits when they do. Because in the world of geoeconomics, even a silent drone buzzing in the night can move billions by morning. Today, we ask a simple question: why drones over Denmark and Norway? And who benefits from this? We began with the scenes in Copenhagen and Oslo: grounded planes, stranded passengers, and airports paralyzed by unidentified drones. What seemed like chaos for travelers revealed something bigger: a pattern across Europe. From Germany to Estonia, hybrid disruptions are testing infrastructure, and each incident pushes governments to spend more, industries to sell more, and leaders to prove their strength. We followed the money, to defense contractors landing billion-dollar deals, to Poland consolidating its role as NATO's eastern anchor, and to insurance firms recalculating premiums. And we saw who loses: passengers, airlines, and the public footing the hidden bill. The global reaction tells us drones are no longer toys. They're signals. Signals that move markets, shift alliances, and rewrite budgets. That's it for today's breakdown: why drones over Denmark and Norway, and who benefits. If you found value in this analysis, make sure to hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Every week here at Geo Capitalist, we follow the numbers, through contracts, trade deals, and disruptions, to reveal the strategies shaping our world. Your support keeps this channel independent, sponsor-free, and fearless. If you'd like to go further, check the links in the description. Every contribution helps fuel the next report. And don't forget, this story doesn't end here. The next disruption could already be unfolding somewhere else in Europe. And when it does, we'll be here to map the money, the power, and the strategy behind it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.